and I just need what assurances you're taking to safeguard the fishery. And secondly, is there any plans to perhaps turn over that whole boat harbour project to the polluter, to the company, to Kimberly-Clark? Will they be responsible for that project in time? So I'll leave that with you till after the interruption then.
Yes. Perhaps the Minister will have half an hour to contemplate an answer for that. We'll now adjourn the committee until 6:30 after the Late Show debate.
Order, please. We reached the moment of interruption. The honourable member for Halifax, Clayton Park, has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tonight's subject for late debate is the resolution, therefore be it resolved, the government allows for a plebiscite on the elimination of VLTs as was once called for by the member of Kings North. And in preparation for speaking for a few minutes tonight on this, I've reviewed some of the things that had led to the member from Kings North raising this issue and some of the things that he said as a result. This had occurred just after our last election in the previous August of 2003, and the member from Kings North came out very strongly in support of a plebiscite for VLTs and also asking his government if they would do a proper study on the social costs of gambling because it had gone up significantly, particularly VLTs. And I think when we're having this discussion, it's important to, gambling and VLTs are two very different different things in Nova Scotia. The VLTs have really created a lot of social problems. And just as an indicator of that, for our gambling helpline in Nova Scotia, 92% of the calls that come in are strictly related to VLT use. So I think that gives a very good barometer of how serious the problem is for VLT usage as compared to other forms of gambling. And what had happened in the year 2001-2, the revenue from VLTs had increased by a tremendous amount. In fact, $100 million more was bet in Nova Scotia at VLTs in that year. And new machines had been introduced that year which had what were supposed to be less addictive features in them. And the fact that these less addictive features had actually led to a surge in gambling was something that had to be questioned, and the members from Kings North brought that forward. And in fact, the gaming corporation who's responsible for the operation of the VLTs said that this was the result of the novelty of the machines. But it was a tremendous cost to pay for the novelty of machines if that was the amount of increased gambling. And what comes out loud and clear in all of the research is that the more that you put these features on and make them attractive, the more people are gambling and the higher social costs that we experience. And that's really the question here tonight. How significant is the social cost, and how much does it, if in fact it does it outweigh the actual revenue that we take in? And I speak here tonight from a unique vantage because I'm both my party's finance critic and the gaming critic. So I'm very well aware of the dependence that we have as a small province with financial difficulties. We have a tremendous dependence on the revenue that we get from gaming. In fact, we get as much from gaming as we do from the Liquor Commission. So it's risen significantly. Just by way of history, in 1991, when VLTs were first introduced, they provided $30 million in revenue for this province. By the year 2001-2, it had gone up to $115 million. That's VLTs alone. And the next year, $118 million in revenue to the province of Nova Scotia. So we know that there's a strong revenue factor here, and that the province is very dependent upon that income. Obviously, it's used for many programs and directed to important things that Nova Scotians need. But the question is, Are there other costs, direct and hidden, that far outweigh the $118 million that we saw in our revenues for VLTs? And if that's the case, then we need to understand it better, and we need to deal with the fact that there are health and social and many, many other costs. I mean, some of the research I've been reading, of course, talks about suicides, about bankruptcies, about divorces, children and families in crisis, certainly financial bankruptcy, as I mentioned, theft and embezzlement, and people in desperate straits to get more money, so they do turn to crime. So the costs that we suffer then are through our criminal system, through community services, through our courts, and they're many and varied. And there's been no study done to really come to terms with how widespread they are and just how damaging this is within our society. And I think it's clear to say that Canadians, right across Canada, people have a real disquiet with VLTs. And some of the studies done have shown that certainly a majority of Canadians are interested in seeing VLTs restricted to casinos or gambling-specific locations. And a study done recently, I think it was the Canadian West Foundation or Canada West Foundation, said 70% of Canadians favored having VLTs out of bars and restaurants. Now, I realize that's not just gauging it here in Nova Scotia, but I think it gives us a pretty clear sense of how Canadians feel. And also a majority of Canadians have in surveys said that they feel there's a clear connection between criminal activity and gambling. So there's a disquiet, I think, a lack of calm with VLTs in particular. And I don't feel, even from my own personal experience as an MLA in this city, that there is nearly as much concern, if it's almost imperceptible, any concern about having a casino in Halifax or having even the Atlantic Lottery ticket sales. There's no concern about that. The uproar and the concern that people have is with video lottery terminals. And I think it's very clear why when you actually see a lot of the studies that are being done in other locations. And I wanted to mention some of the other locales that are, and a lot of them are in the States, that are looking at banning or have in fact banned VLTs completely. Just a few of them that we found in some quick research was in 1999, Louisiana voted to end their gambling experiment, as they called it. They went ahead to remove 4,683 video poker machines in that state. Now, even Las Vegas, it said the mayor of Las Vegas had moved to remove VLTs from neighborhood locations. Even though it's a gambling mecca from around the world, people come there, it's probably the gambling capital of the world. And yet they recognize that in their neighborhoods and in the communities where the residents of Las Vegas live, this was having a negative effect on families and on social stability. So as a result, even Las Vegas had looked to restrict the locations where VLTs were available. And another state is South Carolina, which also in 1999 and through to 2000 took out 34,000 VLTs from that state and took them out completely out of bars and restaurants. And in fact, I think they were more widely spread in that state. But 34,000, here in Nova Scotia, we have less than 4,000 machines off reserves. We have about 3,400, I think, in total, and then another 600 that are on our native reserves. But I think that it's really important to note that other places have made this dramatic move, and they've done it because of public support through plebiscites, telling the legislatures and the lawmakers that it's time to look at this, that the social cost far outweighs any benefit that can be had by continuing to be involved in gaming as a jurisdiction. And I think that we need to look very strongly at that here and let Nova Scotians speak up as well and tell us what they feel. And as you know, the same question was put in New Brunswick just a few years ago. They asked the very same question. I had the exact wording of it here, but I can't find it. However, no, here it is. The question was very simple. They said, should the province of New Brunswick continue to permit the legal and regulated operation of video gaming devices, bracket commonly known as video lottery terminals or VLTs? So it was very simple. There was a very heated debate in New Brunswick, and in fact, the final outcome did favor keeping VLTs in the province, but by a very narrow margin. And it's worth noting in all of the states as well that have had these plebiscites, they tend to be very close margins. And that's because the people who have an interest in VLT operations tend to get very involved in the debate, and I think that they're often very active in funding I would say advertising to the affirmative to support the continuation of VLTs. But my thought is that, again, the idea of eliminating them is not to take them out entirely from the province, but to restrict them to our casinos or to specific locations that are gaming destinations, so that really those destinations, they do support our tourism, which was a big part of why casinos were asked for in the first place, and they become more of an entertainment destination rather than a place that, as I say, in our own neighborhoods, that can actually be a temptation for people with addictions. And there is no question that we have significant addictions in the province. The ratios or the estimates vary from I think it was 2 to 4% of Nova Scotians would have that kind of an addiction. And we know that the cost is great. Often they're cross addictions, so they have addictions to other substances as well. But that's a high percentage of our population. And if in fact the cost is as high as $50,000 per person to help those people with addictions, we're looking at a tremendously high cost that's buried in our health system, in the services for mental health, in our community and correction systems. We don't even know it. So it's time to have a close look at what the cost is for gaming, for VLT gaming, and also to look at a plebiscite to allow people to speak out. I think my time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Recognized Honourable Member Kings North.
I want to thank the member for Halifax Clayton Park and the Liberal caucus for bringing forth this resolution, although I noticed that in her comments she was already changing the resolution from eliminating VLTs and banning them to restricting them, which is a different resolution. But taking the resolution that was put forward, I'd like to speak to it. The naming of a member, I found in my few years here in a resolution, is usually an attempt to embarrass the member, or at least to hoist them on his own petard. And I realize that that's some of the motivation here, but I'm not embarrassed in the least. I'm grateful for any focus on excessive gambling as a social problem, because I believe it is a social problem. I believe that excessive gambling is, in fact, a social cancer, and VLTs in particular are called the crack cocaine of gambling. And I became involved. I actually, in 2003, didn't call for the elimination, but in 1998 I did, when a friend of mine who's involved with addiction counseling, who I'd gone to divinity school with, came to me in despair because, although he's supposed to be involved with counseling for alcoholics, he found himself overwhelmed by the need to counsel for those with gambling addictions, and it wasn't being recognized, and no support was being given to it at that time. And I believe it's a social cancer, as I say, or excessive gambling is, because it by and large preys on those who are suffering from an illness, those who are suffering from addiction. There's a prevalent study due out, which I'm looking forward to seeing what it will reveal, but I imagine it will reveal what's been revealed in other studies, Mr. Speaker, across North America, and that is that, particularly with VLTs, the vast majority of funds raised are raised by those who are problem gamblers. That those are the ones who are putting the money in, that it is not, as is commonly perceived, some benign form of entertainment with a few people popping in $1 here or there. But the vast majority of money, we don't know this for sure, but I think we'll find this when the prevalent study comes out, because this is what other jurisdictions have found. So it preys on those who suffer from an addiction, suffer from an illness. Secondly, it undermines the work ethic. Now, to be fair, the work ethic seems to have been undermined by Enron, excessive CEO salaries, and the salaries of athletes who make millions of dollars for batting little balls around park. But I worry about this, Mr. Speaker, very much. If this province is to be strong, we need a work ethic. We need people who are, and we have one, but we need to strengthen that. We need people who are willing to take the time to put work into something. And the culture of gambling undermines that ethic. It creates an ethic of get rich quick without any work. It runs absolutely contrary, Mr. Speaker, to what I believe is a fundamental pillar of the Tory party that I belong to, and that is that work brings pride, a sense of self-respect, contribution to the larger community as a whole, and that it's good. And this ethic of get rich quick without doing any work runs absolutely counter to that. And I really think that this is something that, this philosophy is something that we need to get to terms with. We need to somehow turn around. And then thirdly, it's a national problem. In the 1970s, when provincial governments were given the authority to regulate gambling in their various provinces, it coincided, Mr. Speaker, with a withdrawal of federal money from areas of equalization payments, roughly about $6 billion over about a 15-year period. And so the provinces across Canada turned to gambling revenues as a way of making up that money. And we see it in all the political parties. The province of Saskatchewan, for example, run by an NDP government, has been as aggressive in trying to get gambling revenue as has any other province. Liberal provinces dominated by Liberal governments, Conservative governments, NDP governments, it doesn't matter. It's a national problem. The question is, the resolution's about a plebiscite on the elimination of VLTs, and as I mentioned, in 2003, I changed my opinion somewhat from what 1998 was. And the reason why is the experience which the honourable member has mentioned about New Brunswick. In New Brunswick, there was a plebiscite held on VLTs, and it failed. It failed narrowly. The reasons the honourable member gave may have been some of the reasons why, that there was an imbalance in terms of the two sides who had the more money to throw at the issue, but it failed. And once it failed, it really helped to cement the establishment of VLTs in that province. And so I'm not sure the timing is right to have a plebiscite. I like to win. I've run 2 elections, and I won both of them, thankfully, thanks to a lot of help, and I like to win. I don't want a plebiscite until the time's right, and that I'm sort of like the members from the province of Quebec. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, I think that the problem with excessive gambling is similar to the problem that we saw with smoking and with secondhand smoke. It took many, many years before we began to realize what problem this was causing to people's health, and secondhand smoke, what problem it was causing to people's health, and what the costs were to society. And I think in some ways we're still in the infancy in realizing that in terms of the effect of excessive problem gambling on the province of Nova Scotia. And so there's a prior step needed, and that step is to get all the relevant statistics about who is gambling, what age, what gender, what economic background, what status, where, when, what times of the day, all those sorts of data. Government, to make good policy, Mr. Speaker, needs good information. And we don't have all the information that we need. Whenever I ask these questions, for example, the information about those who commit suicide due to gambling addictions, those are statistics that are important, Mr. Speaker. Those are statistics we've been promised are going to be coming, and those are statistics we need to set good policy on gambling. And then we need, as a province, to set a gambling policy, or a gaming policy, if you want to use the tamer word for it. I understand there's no province in Canada, Mr. Speaker, that has a gaming policy or a gambling policy. And as chair of the Cabinet Subcommittee on Social Affairs, which has oversight over education, health, human resources, community services, and health promotion, I've been part of discussions about about such a policy. And there's some very interesting discussions going on, and I think it's been indicated in the press that there'll be a policy coming out fairly soon on this issue. There have been advances that we have made before this policy, Mr. Speaker. I want to share some of those with you. VLT, responsible gaming retail training, which began in 1999. Over 1,000 bar owners have taken part in this. Ticket lottery, responsible gaming retail training, which began in March 2004. Responsible Gaming Awareness Week, we've held 2. The third one's going to be held this October. A full-time manager of responsible gaming at the corporation since May 2002. An increased awareness and information at the point of sale with brochures, helpline numbers, etc. A responsible gaming orientation for NSGC staff and the staff of Atlantic Lottery and Casino Nova Scotia. Some preliminary work, Mr. Speaker, that we're doing on VLT self-exclusion program. Tests of enhanced RGVs on VLTs. The pilot study on the South Shore was mentioned, I think, by the Speaker. And other things. These are important steps that have been taken. They're, in my opinion, the first step, but they're very important steps. They're far more than any previous party has done in this province. And I think that this government has moved as aggressively as any government has done in the history of Nova Scotia to try and come to some terms with the problem of addictive gambling. But what we need more than anything is a very comprehensive policy on gambling, and we're working on that, as I said, as a province. I understand that we're leaders across Canada in that other provinces are looking to us to see what we're going to do about this and what sort of model we can come up with that will be of help to the citizens of our province, because ultimately that's what it's all about. We know, Mr. Speaker, that gambling has been part of humanity since probably humanity started. As a minister, the classic case that comes to mind, a religious minister, is the case at the cross where when Christ was being crucified, they gambled for his cloak. So we're not going to get rid of gambling, but we need to somehow set parameters so that our citizens are not disadvantaged and not hurt. And I think we're moving in that direction, Mr. Speaker. We're moving in that direction because of the items I just listed, very important items, but the most important one still is this comprehensive gambling or gaming policy that we're going to be coming out with, which will be the first of its kind, I understand, in Canada, and put us as leaders in this. And so I want to thank the members in this House who've been pushing for this, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more to say about it once it's unveiled. But I think it's important that we're taking this step, and I think it's a very, very important step.
Thank you. I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity during this moment of interruption to speak on the resolution of therefore be it resolved that the government allow for plebiscites on the elimination of VLTs as once called for by the member of Kings North. And I think it's a matter of calling for a plebiscite anyway, rather it was once called for by the member of Kings North or not, Mr. Speaker. We need to go back to why we even have video lottery gambling in the province of Nova Scotia. And the government's contention and argument all along, Mr. Speaker, has been that these games were illegal. There was illegal gambling taking place throughout the entire province, that these gray machines were being held in corner stores, in back rooms, and by associations and organizations, and there was absolutely no control of them. Rather than take the full force of the law, Mr. Speaker, to address the issue of those people who were dealing with illegal gambling in the province of Nova Scotia, and those who were engaged, I should say, in illegal gambling in the province of Nova Scotia, and enticing people to be involved in that illegal gambling, the most important thing, the government should have came down with the full force of the law and made sure that the penalty was so severe that people would not be involved in gambling. Mr. Speaker, that would have been the crunch and that would have been the stop of having video lottery terminals in the province of Nova Scotia. However, the government's argument and contention was to bring them in because somehow they would be able to manage. There would be the legalization of video lottery terminals, and they would be able to control the money, and they would be able to dispense with educational programs, treatment programs, and the like. What happened, Mr. Speaker, is that the video lottery machines came in under Donnie Cameron. And as a matter of fact, they became located in local family corner stores. There wasn't a corner store in Nova Scotia that you couldn't enter where you could see a senior or some young people playing a video lottery machine. People using their last penny to buy a loaf of bread were putting it into the video lottery machine to take a chance on winning and maybe getting 3 loaves of bread. That's the kind of gambling that took place, Mr. Speaker. Then, when the Liberal government came to power in 1993, they had the good graces to recognize the kind of havoc and problem that was being played out there in the communities by video lottery machines being located in corner stores. So they, in fact, moved them into licensed establishments, be them non-profit, be them bars and taverns and legions alike. They put them in those particular stores. At least, Mr. Speaker, there was some control over who entered. At least now, young people, people under the ages of 18 years of age, could not enter those establishments to gamble. So they weren't taking money out of their family purses and so on and going into the local community stores to gamble. Now the money was being spent in fact, in the bars and taverns. It became such an abusive way of trying to get rich that people were taking advantage and spending numerous of dollars that they didn't even have. As a matter of fact, that is when the addictions came into effect. Today, the Department of Health, Mr. Speaker, says that there are some 6,400 Nova Scotians who are problem gamblers. Does that require a plebiscite? Does that require something to be looked at? You can bet you, 6,400, I will tell you, problem gamblers according to the Department of Health statistics. And that's in the report if you're going to be attending to tomorrow morning. That's in the report. So I want you to know, Mr. Speaker, that in itself sends a signal. And we don't even know what what level of problem gambling is, because the Gaming Foundation finds it very convenient to do marketing analysis, to do promotional skills on how to drain the money from people, but it doesn't do any assessment or evaluation on those individuals and the problems that happen to those individuals. It cannot tell you how many people whom in fact may have committed suicide as a result of gambling. The Gaming Corporation can't tell you that. They can't tell you how many people have lost their homes, their asset values, and the whole gambit as a result of gambling. They don't keep those records, nor are they interested in. It was only through my opportunity to have the opportunity, thanks to the member from Halifax Fairview, who gave me the opportunity to make those kind of contacts with the Gaming Corporation through the Department of Finance meetings, that we were able to discover these sorts of things. That's the kind of thing that happens when you have no control and you don't care, because your prime objective is to generate revenue not only for your corporation, but revenue that the government says that they must have to deliver such programs as, can you get a load of this? Health, education, transportation, all out of money that comes from gambling. Can you imagine? What have we become? That is the question. And Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you that is where we need to go back and take a look at. That's the avenue that we need to take the chance. The honourable member is quite right. I can assure you there was never a study or any intent to have a study on any comprehensiveness with respect to problem gambling in this province. I credit myself and the NDP for bringing that forward, because we were the ones that challenged the government that every minister in that government was questioned by the media. Health, finance, education, justice, almost every minister was questioned with respect to that. And that's the reason why they recognize that there is a real need for a comprehensive study. And I do want to acknowledge the member from Kings North for serving on the social committee of the party. I had not realized that there was such a social committee of the party, but there is. And I will say that I'm honored by the fact that the member of Kings North, a member of the cloth, and is in fact on that social committee, because I believe there will be at least some social conscience within the political party over on that side of the floor with respect to addressing this issue. The other thing is this, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow there cannot be a plebiscite, because there is no formal information out there on how you craft the language to put that plebiscite out to the people. And unlike New Brunswick, we don't want it to happen, where in fact the vendors and the operators who in fact were sowing in the money became the kingpins of determining the outcome of that plebiscite. That cannot and should not be allowed to happen. There must be a level playing field. There can be no imbalance when in fact you're looking at a social issue such as gambling. The other component is that we can do some plebiscites, and we can do it in a real and sensible way. Do you know that the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission and the Liquor Licensing Board, before it licenses an establishment, puts an advertisement in the paper? It also sends a notice out to the community, out to the municipalities. And it asks those municipalities for input on whether the citizens are concerned about the licensed establishment in their community, and they give citizens input. And the citizens, Mr. Speaker, can determine whether or not they want that establishment in their community. The same thing most recently happened with adult video businesses. If you don't know, and I do know that the honourable member from Halifax Clayton Park is very much aware that these issues come before the Halifax Regional Municipality, and that in fact the municipality can be engaged and its citizens can be engaged with respect to whether they want those facilities in their neighbourhood. And if it doesn't meet the zoning requirements and so on, they don't fit it, they're not going in. Now, we can start this process tomorrow with respect to allowing communities where, in fact, video lottery machines are going to be established to have at least a plebiscite on them, Mr. Speaker. That's a minor start. The end of the road and the long way down, Mr. Speaker, can be because it's a short time before the next municipal election, and it would be unfair to bring this cap in hand with Sunday shopping. I think it would then be skewed, and there wouldn't be any real acknowledgement of what the outcome would be of the video lottery gambling. But I want to tell you that has to come. There has to be a day in which that plebiscite will come forward. And I do know that the member from Halifax Citadel asked the Minister with respect to, the Minister of Finance with respect to his responsibility to call a plebiscite, and there was actually no response. I will say, though, in the short term, Mr. Speaker, and to that government over there, and to the member of the Social Committee over there as well, is that there are avenues in which we can start to tinker with and bring in a way of reducing or eliminating video lottery machines. I wish I had some more time to talk on the moratorium and so on, Mr. Speaker, because the unfortunate part of it is I could spend a whole hour on the moratorium alone and talking about how this government...
I'm allowed to lead the meeting.
Thank you, Mr.
House to resume itself back in the committee. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Pictou West.
Well, I was going to share my time with the member from Hants East, but I think the minister had a reply for me, and then we'll turn it over to the member from Hants East.
The honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, before we recessed for the moment of interruption, the honourable member for Pictou West was questioning, had questions regarding Boat Harbour. And we have a plan that's presently going forward, and as I say, I'll be pleased to give the honourable member a briefing note on that, but not this one that I have in my hand. We're working on a plan to address the sediments, the accumulated sediments in the bottom of the tidal basin, in the bottom of the basin. And we're going to have a plan to remove some of those sediments, and then finally to return the estuary back to tidal action. And to do that, Mr. Chairman, we have to take out the present causeway and put a bridge in. Now, there are four components to this program. The first one is the mill is going to construct an underwater pipeline which will discharge effluent on the 2 outgoing tides per day. This is the plan, mind you. This is not locked in stone yet. Then when that's underway, TPW will take out the restrictions on the tidal flow in and out of the estuary, and we'll replace that with a bridge. And then we will remove the accumulated sediments from the bottom of the tidal basin, and the weir structure will be removed, allowing the tide to flow freely in and out of the basin. So there are four different projects that will be undertaken to return the estuary back to possibly a fishery. It will be done in conjunction with cooperation from the mill and from the band and from the surrounding populace, with the Department of Transportation and the Department of Environment and all others who have been involved in this project. It's been a long project, I know, and for those members, and I know, for instance, the member behind me, and yourself have had a particular interest because of the proximity of the problem to your neighborhoods. But rest assured, it is moving, and hopefully it will be not by the next time around in here, But by the next time around, after the next election, whenever that should occur, probably we'll have a solution in place.
The honourable member for Hants East.
Thank you, Chair, and thank my colleague, and I thank the minister. Very glad to hear your comments on Boat Harbor, but I'm not gonna go there. I have real concerns about my constituency and roads in my constituency. I think the minister got my wish list the other day, and I can and I know he would recognize it as being particularly extensive. But there's something concerns me more, Mr. Chair. That's the idea that I'm not entirely sure exactly what's happening in terms of the budgeting process around the sheds in Hants East. My impression of roads in my area is that they're getting worse rather than getting better, and I want to ask the minister. We used to have 3 sheds in Hants East, in Rawdon, in Knoll, and in Milford. Now we have 2, and my thought is, from what I've been able to determine, is that we have 1/3 of the men in all of Hants East that we used to. In other words, the number of men in the 2 sheds in Hants East are what we used to have in 1 shed out of 3 in Hants East. So we're down to 1/3 of the men. And I tried to quiz my area manager to get as much information out of him, and he wasn't all that forthcoming. He indicated that the budget for Hants East was the same as Hants West, or seemed to indicate that to me, but didn't seem to want to tell me just exactly how that budget was being managed. So I want to know, is there more work in Hants East or Hants East budget that's gone to rural impact mitigation, more money to the private sector, and less to the public, to the DOT side of getting work done by the men? So can you tell me that?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, as we have expanded the RIM program, naturally there's been increased work excuse me, going to the private sector as a total. The amount of work done in East Hants, though, I can assure the honourable member, has been fairly high. But Hants, did I say Hants West? I meant Hants East. But Hants East covers a very large area, like, for instance, compared to my riding, and it's also a much more higher density than because of its proximity to HRM. So there's been a fair bit of work done in Hants East every year, and in fact, some of my colleagues would probably tell me that I've been favoring Hants East. So I leave that thought with you. As I've said to other persons who have asked about various roads, etc., at the present time, the capital plan is by no means completed for this year, and we'll be working on it right up until probably the end of July before we have the capital plan finalized.
The Honourable Member for Hants East.
Thank you, Chair. I'll thank the minister. I guess for me, after doing this for 6 years, certainly it seemed like I used to be able to call that there was a problem, and I could be told, look, we can't do that this year, we can do that in 3 months, we can do that in 2 weeks, we'll be on that tomorrow. Now I can't seem to get any direction at all of whether or not it'll ever be done. And last summer, it seemed to me that there were roads that never even, by fall, didn't have the spring potholes fixed when it came to patching. So my impression is there's been a deterioration in resources there, and I'm quite concerned because I just know from the level of calls that I'm getting, things don't seem to get addressed in the same fashion. So I would like to know if the minister, when he says the capital budget isn't determined, I'd like to know exactly what that covers.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
think what the honourable member is speaking about, potholes, etc., that would be done under the operational budget and probably separate from the rim, because it'd be a more isolated patching than the kind of spreader patching that you get under the rim program. You know Mr. Kelly, I presume, as well as I do, and he is a very effective and efficient user of DOT funding, and he invariably gets the job done. If you have particular problems with regard to potholes, I would advise you to get hold of David and tell him, and if you wish, you can pass it on to me, and I'll get hold of David.
The honourable member for Hants East.
Thank you, Chair. I know my time is running out. I have a high regard for Mr. Kelly. He's been good to work with. My concern is around issues of we had that pothole patcher, that machine that fills holes. I was told that it costs $100 an hour to use that machine or rent it, or whatever the department does, and that I could put a crew of men with a truck and cover more ground for the $100 an hour. So I'm just wondering who comes up with those decisions about which is the most appropriate way to effectively deal with potholes.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works, 30 seconds.
That, Mr. Chairman, is done at the local level. But the machine compacted pothole job is a lot better than somebody going out with a shovel and shoveling it in and stamping it down with his boot. The difficulty with putting in asphalt, particularly in the spring, is that unless the conditions are right, it's just a waste of money. And also, asphalt costs about twice as much in the spring as it does during the summer.
I'll recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect on an introduction.
For Preston for giving me this quick opportunity. As we are doing estimates here and talking about Route 213 in Hammonds Plains, it's appropriate to introduce these 12 cubs. I'm not going to introduce them. They are shared between the member from Sackville Hammonds Plains and myself, and they're here with their leaders, Eileen Smith, Chip Maddock, Natalie Wilson, and Aaron McIntyre. Also parents Gary Russell, Kim Conway, Bob McDermott, Steve Heltson, and Chris Richardson, and I was wondering if the group could stand and receive the recognition of the House.
The honourable member for Preston.
Thank you very much. I've just got a couple of questions for the minister, and these are local issues more than the global issues that you've been dealing with here a lot today. I have a road, O'Connell Drive, in Porters Lake, and it's an unusual situation. A part of that road services a school, and it runs from the Never 7 Highway up to the school, and then beyond that into a subdivision. But the area from the Number 7 Highway to actually the school driveway is owned by the province of Nova Scotia, and the area above that is a municipality under the new arrangement you have. Now, the problem with O'Connell Drive is there's just a tremendous amount of traffic, and it's a gravel road. So there's school buses every day. There's 450 or 60 children in the school. They come from all over, and a lot of traffic, cars, service vehicles, and everything. And despite the best efforts of the department, and they do work on it when they can, considering it's a gravel road and they can't work on it in rainy days and the other things, the road is almost impassable from time to time. There's people driving on the wrong side of the road. I don't know why there hasn't been some difficulty from occupational health and safety for the school bus drivers and the students in the school buses, because they don't ride very well anyway, and the road is just a disaster. And they grade it one day, 2 days later it's a disaster again, and if it rains in those 2 days it's even worse. So is there anything we can do with a road like that in the immediate future to resolve the problem? Now, past that, it's not a problem because the traffic isn't a problem, and the problem is caused by the school being there. Now, it's great to have the school there, don't get me wrong, but the road is a really bad situation. Is there anything we can do to get that resolved?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Maybe I'll just run by the what I think the thing looks like, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. We're coming from a paved highway up to a school, gravel road. Beyond that, there's a subdivision with gravel roads too, I assume. And it's within HRM, so the gravel roads within the subdivision could be put on the priority list for subdivision paving, and it'd be possible to do it. And I would suggest to you, if it's just a short run, not getting any shakings of heads up there. If it's just a short run, we could probably add that onto the subdivision road. How big is the subdivision? Is it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I think we could probably work something out under the J Road program and accommodate that, particularly for the school there.
The honourable member for Preston.
Well, I appreciate the minister's answer on that, and I appreciate his concern, and I'm sure the residents will too. The problem is the residents who live on the short section that the province owns of the road aren't willing to petition the road to get it paved because it's not caused by their traffic, it's caused by the school traffic. That's the problem. Right or wrong, that's their position. I've talked to each one of them individually, and where the school driveway, past the school driveway, where HRM owns the rest of the roads, the road is in excellent condition because the traffic isn't there. That's simply the problem. It's just a traffic problem. And it's so much traffic. Once a school closes in the summertime, they grade the road, put some calcium chloride on it. The road is fine all summer till the school opens again in the fall. It was so bad this spring that the road was just about impassable, absolutely impassable. But still the school buses had to go in, the residents had to go in. And the residents don't mind the school there, they don't mind the traffic, but they got to have a road that they can handle. And I would ask the minister again if there's anything we can do. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe chip seal it or add some more material to it, something that the road will stand up in that high traffic time. And just that short section.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yeah. We will have a look at it and see if something can be done. As I say, I think we may be able to do something under the J class roads program.
The Honourable Member for Preston.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your answer. And without seeing the road, knowing about it, I know you can't give me the definitive answer, but I do appreciate that. I'm going to turn the rest of my time over to my honored colleague.
The Honourable Member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the essence of time, Honourable Minister, I'll give a list of topics, and maybe we'll have time to discuss one or two. But I'll start off with the entrance to Cape Breton, where the causeway meets the bridge. Each and every time I travel to and from, it's slam, bang, crash, away goes your shocks. You come out with a few uncolorful words, and you look up and read the sign, "Welcome to Cape Breton." And that's your introduction to Cape Breton. They did do some patching around there, Mr. Minister, but I don't know why that the bridge had to be left the way it is, but it's an atrocious way to enter into Cape Breton. I have the issue of Jake brakes. I have the crews that are plowing and paving, fearful of losing jobs, not being replaced, that the RIM program is continuing to be expanded, and that they don't feel that they have security in their jobs. And also the paving projects that would be done in Victoria, the Lakes. I understand there's some paving being done in the Lakes area, but I've had requests from the truck operators in Victoria County. Are they going to be able to get any work for paving? So you can take your pick, or I can focus on one at a time, whatever you choose, Mr. Minister.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
I can remember, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the roundabout coming into Cape Breton as you come off the Swing Bridge, that road, I believe, is on. I think, if I remember correctly, that piece of the road is on somebody's program for resurfacing, probably spreader patching, I would think, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. You were speaking about the, what the heck were you speaking about now? Okay, just give me another one. Let's see. Jake brakes. Jake brakes, we have a policy for Jake brakes, and if the road that you're speaking of has a speed limit of less than 50K, we will sign it, and that will take care of the problem. If it's more than 50K, well then I don't think we can do too much for you.
The honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Mr. Minister, we've had public meetings. The speed limit with the police, the Sydney Police, CBRM Police, they were the highest promoter of this to reduce the speed limit to 50K from 70, because at 70K the trucks can go up to 87 before they get a ticket. At 50K they could go up to 67 before they get a ticket. So therefore, by reducing it down to 50, the Jake brakes would be illegal. They're keeping the rural community up all night long, and the community is in full agreement that the economic development must take place with the trucks and the gravel, but they're looking to have a bit of peace and quiet where they can live in peace in their own area. We've gone through that. There's an education program taking place right now, and from what the residents are telling me, it's not working. It's a voluntary program, and I attribute it to a voluntary speed limit. Nobody will observe it, and to date, they're even taking the baffles out of their mufflers, Mr. Minister, and keeping the community awake morning, noon, and night.
Order, please.
You told me that there was going to be a policy or a pilot project announced for Jake brakes within the next week or 10 days. Could you expand on that for me, please?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
This is the one. We have a pilot program that we're putting in place. I don't know when it's coming out. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, where it will apply to the buy high as you come down onto Bayers Road. That is, as I say, a pilot program. We're going to see how well that works. I've had my deputy minister write to the truckers associations, the various truckers associations, advising them about their Jake's brakes, and that we would be inspecting them to see if they remove, what is that thing that's, there's a device they can take off a baffle, to make them even louder, and we'll be checking to make sure that those are in place. And generally speaking, we're trying a number of different approaches to getting some reasonable use of Jake brakes. Having said that, we have to remember that Jake brakes are a safety feature, and a very essential safety feature particularly for large, heavily laden trucks.
The Honourable Member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. And it's in the realm of safety that the residents of the area concerned are interested in slowing the traffic down for safety for local traffic and local residents, just the short distance from where the gravel pits the trucks are being loaded to the Trans-Canada Highway, and it's safety and noise, but safety is the ultimate concern. Another topic, Mr. Minister, the plowing crews and the paving crews. The fear of not having a reliable job because of the expansion of the RIM program and the contracting out to private contractors. And is there an intention of the minister to keep expanding the RIM program and the contracting out?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, we will be continue to expand the RIM program. It is a very popular program, and we will continue to expand that program because we get good return for our dollar, and it certainly helps the small contractor, and it certainly pleases the people whose roads we fix running by their properties. With regard to snowplow operators, etc., losing their jobs because
Order, please. Order, please. Order. The Minister of Transportation and Public Works has the floor.
With regard to alternate source, we are only doing that whereby we have a vacancy, and we are not laying any people off that are permanent employees.
The Honourable Member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. One final question that hopefully we have time to. You did quite a bit of conversation on potholes. There's numerous areas in the area that the patching of the pothole is not sufficient, that spreader patches are going to be required because the pothole has expanded so much that there's areas of the road that are 6 and 8 feet wide, that there's several layers of pavement missing over and above the pothole itself. And would the minister instruct the department to maybe, I know it's an additional expense, but a spreader patch would be far more effective than filling in a hole, and you fill in a hole, but yet you still leave a bump or a hollow because of the area around the hole. So maybe you would consider the department increasing the use of spreader patching rather than pothole filling.
The Honourable Minister with 47 seconds.
The quick answer, we have put more money into RIM this year. That will cause more spreader patching to occur. And I agree with the Honourable Member that where there is a large pothole area, individual patching does not cut the mustard, and that we have to go into spreader patching.
The Honourable Member for Victoria the Lakes, 25 seconds.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank the Minister and hope that the answers that were given, and I think being an Honourable Minister, he will follow through with that, and I look forward to the developments in my area. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
The Honourable Minister, 10 seconds. Order, please. I think it would be safe to say the time has elapsed for estimates. The 40 hours is now concluded. I recognize the Honourable Member for Kings North.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to report that the Subcommittee on Supply has met for the time allotted for it and considered the various estimates assigned to it.
Hear, hear.
Shall all remaining resolutions carry? I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Oh, stop, yes. We now have 54 members.
The
Thank you. We'll let them vote.
I congratulate the Honourable Government House Leader on his efforts. Certainly would have carried the vote. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Chair, I move that your committee now rise and report these estimates.
The committee's met and considered all of the estimates referred to it, and the chairman's been instructed.
We're going to start over. Okay. The chairman of the Committee on the Whole House of Supply reports
That the committee's met and considered all estimates referred to it, and the chairman's been instructed to recommend them to the favorable consideration of the House without amendment.
The motion is that the House concurs the report of the Committee on the Whole House on Supply. Would all those in favor of the motion say aye? Aye. Recorded vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, would you please revert to the order of business, introduction of bills?
Introduction of bills.
Mr. Speaker, would you please recognize the Minister of Finance?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Provide for Defraying Certain Charges and Expenses of the Public Service of the Province. Mr. Speaker, that bill has been printed and the clerks have distributed it.
The Honourable Minister of Finance begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Provide for Defraying Certain Charges and Expenses of the Public Service of the Province.
Bill 78, entitled An Act to Provide for Defraying Certain Charges and Expenses of the Public Service of the Province.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I move second reading of the bill, the Appropriations Act 2004.
The Honourable Minister of Finance moves second reading of Bill number 78, Appropriations Act 2004. Will all those in favor say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Recorded vote has been called for. You're ready now, or you ring the bells? Okay. Thank you. Ring the bells to the satisfaction of the whips. Order, please. Are the whips satisfied? Recorded vote has been called for on second reading of Bill 78, the Appropriations Act 2004. The clerk will call the roll. All those in favor will say aye. Contrary-minded, nay.
Mr. Clark. Aye. Mr. Morse.
Aye.
Mr. Rodney McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Russell.
Yes.
Mr. Ham.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Muir.
Yes.
Mr. Christie.
Yes.
Mr. Fage.
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac.
Yes.
Ms. Bolivar Getson.
Yes.
Mr. D'Entremont.
We.
Mr. Hurlbert.
Yes.
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Mr. Morash.
Yes.
Mr. Dukes.
Yes.
Mr. DeWolf.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Ron Chisholm.
Yes.
Mr. Langell.
Yes.
Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Chataway.
Yes.
Mr. Parent.
Aye.
Ms. Massey.
Yes.
Mr. McDonnell.
Yes.
Mr. Corbett.
Yes.
Ms. Maureen McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Dexter.
Yes.
Mr. Duvall.
Aye.
Mr. Manning McDonald.
No.
Mr. Gaudette.
No.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
Ms. Whalen.
No.
Mr. Caldwell.
No.
Mr. Glavine.
No.
Mr. Sampson.
No.
Mr. H. Dave Wilson.
No.
Mr. Sampson.
No.
Mr. Steele.
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Ms. Raymond.
Yes.
Mr. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Pye.
Yes.
Mr. Goss.
Yes.
Mr. David Allen Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Estabrooks.
Aye.
Mr. Graham.
Absent.
Absent. Mr. Terrell.
No.
Mr. McNeil.
No. The results of the vote. Those in favor, 40. Those opposed, 10.
Motion is carried. Honorable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I move third reading of Bill 78, the Appropriation Act 2004.
Honorable Minister of Finance moves third reading of Bill 78, the Appropriations Act 2004. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Nay. Motion is carried.
Bill 78, entitled an act to provide for defraying certain charges and expenses of the public service of the province.
Order the bill do pass. Order the title be as read by the clerk. Order the bill be engrossed. Honorable Government House Leader.
Speaker, I move the House to now rise, and the honourable member, leader of the House for the opposition, will give us the business and the hours for tomorrow.
The honourable member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage on tomorrow's hours and order of business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow we'll be sitting between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m. And after the daily routine and question period, we will be calling Bill number 21 and Bill number 66.
Motion is the House adjourned to 2 p.m. tomorrow. Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The House adjourned to 2 p.m. tomorrow.